Hey everyone, Kirk Reviews here, and today we are going to be reviewing an album. You may not have heard of him, but he's a rapper called Oddish 420. And his first release is called Smart Kid, Dumb City, an obvious parody of Kendrick Lamar's Good Kid, Mad City. The album starts off with the track Higher, whose chorus is some sort of parody of Kanye West's Dark Fantasy, with the phrase, "Can we get much higher?" In the skit at the beginning of this track, Oddish 420 seems to breathe in some toxic fumes, which turn him into this politically incorrect alter ego, who's the character he'll be rapping through for the rest of this album. The rest of the track's pretty fun and bouncy. I do enjoy how, as the verses progress, more and more instruments get added to the mix. One complaint I have is how there's like a full minute of just ad-libs at the end of the track, which, wasn't really necessary. After this, we move on to a skit, which just confirms that the toxic fumes have taken over Oddish 420, and he isn't able to control himself, and what he says, giving him more freedom to be edgy and offensive. Just gotta say, right off the bat though, the acting in this skit is absolutely terrible, which might be intentional given some of the lyrics on the other tracks being pretty self-aware, such as the P-word track, Club, and Welcome. The way the skit ends is absolutely hilarious, however, with Oddish 420 just saying F you and slamming the door. After this skit, we get bombarded with an onslaught of tracks which are essentially all trying to do the same thing, which is be as offensive as possible. Through some pretty unique ways, a track that immediately stands out to me is Follow, whose beat is pretty all over the place, with some flat bass, glossy pianos, horns in the chorus, choir vocals, and the song also ends with some ear rape. Another weird thing about this track is that it quote-unquote features Drake, but it's obviously not Drake. It's Oddish 420 just putting on a voice. This definitely makes the album more interesting on the tracks where there are features, such as Roblox and Club. But I don't know. It feels weird putting all these offensive statements into the mouths of others, despite it being obviously fake. The lyrics of Follow contrast the lyrics on a lot of other tracks, as the lyrics seem to be pretty socially conscious, saying how social media is harmful, especially to the current generation. And even though we do have to get through some pretty interesting lines to get to the conclusion, at the end of the track, there's a message delivered by Oddish 420 and Drake just saying, "Love yourself," which I think is pretty admirable, actually. This thing really takes a nosedive, though, in quality, with the next track, Club. The chorus in this thing is so repetitive, over and over, just... And, well, I do think the samples in the song are interesting. They are pretty distracting and do take me out of the song entirely. It's almost as if this track was made just to destroy the good mood the previous track had set up. We get another skit, this time featuring what I can only assume is one of Oddish 420's weird friends, basically saying the sampling's terrible and people are gonna think he's gay. After this, though, after this proposal, Oddish 420 takes these criticisms to heart and makes a full-blown diss track on the poor guy. Now, I don't get some of the references on this track. I can only assume Fagum, as he's called in this track, had some involvement in his grandmother's death, and that he might have a past record of self-harming, or maybe just acts depressed, but the track's still pretty entertaining, nonetheless. The chorus is pretty blunt and catchy, and the random female moaning sample works well, and really adds a new dynamic to the track. And I really think that some of Oddish 420's bars are pretty fire, you get no B-words, or you get stitches from Count Yourself in the Wrists. While we're talking about beats, one of my favourite beats on this album is the one for No, which has some explosive drums, and a pretty interesting synth melody. Some of the rhymes in this track are also pretty good, at least comparing them to some of the other tracks, like Club and the P-word song. Speaking of the P-word track, while I'm not interested in the lyrics, I do enjoy the constant thuds in the instrumental and the story Oddish 420 tells in the second verse about pulling up on his old girlfriend and her new boyfriend, which, if it were left at all ambiguous, is revealed in the final track that yes, he did indeed kill them both, and apparently the cops who came to the crime scene. The track Roblox has a pretty repetitive beat, but all the features on the track are really entertaining, Drake and 50 Cent being obvious highlights. However, one other thing about the track is Oddish 420's voice. In this track, he sounds a lot younger, and it's pretty distracting, especially if you're coming back to this one like after having listened to the full album, as you'll be used to his deeper voice. The track Welcome is pretty long, but it's definitely entertaining for the full run. The chorus on this one genuinely made me laugh out loud for the first time. It's basically Oddish for 20 mimicking a female's moan before saying welcome to the Roblox house. And just so you're aware, nowhere throughout the whole track does Oddish for 20 ever explain what the Roblox house is. This skit at the end is pretty funny as well, with Oddish for 20 catching people doing some things in his car. The penultimate track on the album is essentially just Oddish for 20 letting everyone know about this fetish he has for doing things with animals, or Animosh, as the track says. Saying he wants to do some things with a male tiger, but then quickly correcting himself as to not be shamed. The last track is pretty middle of the road. There's even a chorus. It's just like 3 minute long verse of Oddish for 20 trying to say the most offensive stuff he can. He also makes some callbacks to the previous tracks, such as Animosh, Welcome, and the P-Word song. There's a pretty weird sample in the track, though, from Baldi's Basics, which I do kind of dig. It certainly does add to the weirdness of the track. The album ends with Oddish for 20 yelling the word he called his friend Adam, and then saying, "Oh my god, I can't believe I just did that, oh my god," which is a contrasting statement against the one that he said in Roasted, which, I guess since that's the end of the album, I guess that's how I'm going to get my review. I'd probably give this album a 6 out of 10. A lot of the tracks are pretty good, but there are a few tracks that kind of drag it down, like, the first few verses on Roblox, and Animosh, and Club. If the rest of the track listing was like as strong as those tracks, it'd probably get like a lot better a score. But anyway, what did you think of this album? To rip off Anthony Fantano, did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit a like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over oh, I forgot what I said. It's Quick Reviews forever.